It starts with trade policy, but it ends in the soil of America's heartland. This isn't just about profits. It's a shockwave rattling the entire agricultural supply chain. When the biggest buyer of U.S. soybeans, China, pulls back, a surplus floods the market and prices plummet. With shrinking margins, farmers must make tough choices. One of the first costs they control is water. We will now follow this chain reaction, from trade policy to crop prices, to the critical choice of irrigation. The problem is simple. Lower prices mean less revenue to cover costs. How do farmers react when their income is threatened? Unlike loans, irrigation is a variable cost. Pumping water costs energy and money, making it a direct target for savings. This means reducing irrigation cycles or switching from high-coverage pivots to targeted methods. They ration a vital input. For some, the math on soybeans fails. They pivot to crops like sorghum or wheat that are naturally more drought-tolerant. But this choice directly affects the final product. Less water can lower both the total yield and the quality of the bean. So farmers are in a bind. Cut water to save money now, or switch crops entirely. Both choices have serious consequences. We understand the economic logic, but what does this water reduction actually do to the soybean plant? The answer is alarming. First, the obvious impact. Water is vital for growth. Less water means smaller plants and fewer pods, cutting the yield. Second, quality suffers. Water stress lowers the protein and oil content, making the entire U.S. crop less valuable. But here is the hidden danger that most people miss. A thirsty plant is a weak plant. Drought-stressed soybeans cannot defend themselves effectively. Their natural resistance to pests and diseases plummets. This transforms an economic problem into a biological one, forcing farmers into a vicious cycle of pest management costs. So, cutting back on water doesn't just shrink the harvest, it makes entire fields weak and vulnerable to biological attack. Now let's add another layer. Government policy. Subsidies can give a financial cushion to absorb lower prices. Crop insurance also plays a part. If yield loss is covered, the risk of under-irrigating is reduced for the farmer. We've seen market forces, biological risks, and policy incentives. But what is the permanent damage to the land itself? Consistent under-irrigation degrades soil health. It harms microbial activity, making the land less productive long-term. These choices also affect sustainability. Different irrigation methods directly impact energy use and the farm's carbon footprint. Looming over this is climate change. Unpredictable rainfall makes irrigation planning more difficult than ever. It's a perfect storm. Economic pressure forces decisions that cause long-term environmental damage as the climate gets worse. With all these converging pressures, are farmers simply trapped? Or can they innovate their way out of this crisis? The answer is in technology. Precision irrigation tools use sensors to apply the exact amount of water needed, no more. Remember that intense economic pressure? It can ironically be the very catalyst for adopting this water-saving technology. Beyond hardware, there are biological solutions. Scientists are developing new drought-resistant soybeans, less dependent on irrigation. But these advances need support. The same government programs can be redesigned to incentivize adopting this new technology. The path forward requires a fusion of technology, biology, and smarter policy. Let's connect these final pieces. A single trade policy decision creates a cascade. It flows from global markets to a farmer's budget to the health of one plant. And as we saw at the beginning, this doesn't stop at the farm gate. It creates instability throughout the U.S. supply chain. This story of soybeans and water is a case study in the fragility of our modern food system and the need for smart adaptation. For policymakers, it's a call to weigh on-the-ground consequences. For farmers, it's a directive to invest in resilient tech.